On the Thursday that began like all the others, Nika stayed behind after physics to ask Miss Thorne a question about vectors and left the classroom with an answer that made less sense than before. Miss Thorne had a habit of looking as if she were on the verge of saying something enormous, then choosing a smaller, safer sentence instead. The result was that questions multiplied around her like birds startled into a spiral. Nika drifted into the hallway with everyone else, then remembered she'd left her water bottle on a back shelf. When she retraced her steps, the door to 3B had already clicked shut. Through the little pane of wired glass, the room sat empty in the late afternoon glow. She tried the handle, unlocked. Her bottle glinted where she'd left it, beside the Newton's cradle and a lopsided stack of lab notebooks. She crossed the room, and that was when she noticed the cabinet. It stood in the back corner where, she would have sworn on her cat, on her grandmother's recipe book, there had always been a map case. This was taller, the color of stormwater. Brass hinges ran its length like a spine, and the wood had that improbable sheen of a thing that has never needed to be dusted. On the glass of its upper door, someone had stenciled a thin circle so faint it looked like a smudge until you stood very still. It wasn't on any floor plan because no one made floor plans for the strange geometry of after-school silence. Nika wasn't nosy. That was what she always told herself. But curiosity is just hunger that forgot its name. She set the bottle down and tried the cabinet's handle. It opened. Inside, the shelves weren't holding beakers or chalk. They were arranged around an absence, as if the cabinet had been built around a shape that was no longer there. At the center of that negative space hung a device from a cradle of leather straps. A disc the size of a dinner plate, layered with rings inscribed with notations too small to read. Threads of copper braided outward and anchored into little blocks of dark stone. The whole thing had an old-fashioned look, but Nika could feel a faint hum in the air around it, like the soft buzz of a street lamp about to flicker on. "I shouldn't touch this," she said to no one, which is the incantation one speaks right before touching something. She reached in and found that the device was warm, warmer than the room. As her fingers brushed a knurled wheel, symbols rippled across the top ring, as if light were moving under metal. A dot brightened at the edge of a circle, then wandered inward, seeking. Nika knew a little about gyroscopes and nothing about magic. She knew the tilt of a thing when it's balancing between two kinds of truth. The door opened behind her. "Oh," Miss Thorne said, but not in the way one says it when one is surprised. She said it the way a climber does when a foothold betrays them, but they were expecting a betrayal anyway. "Nika, I was just—" Nika's hand was already lifting away from the device, the muscle memory of guilt faster than reason. "I forgot my water bottle," Miss Thorne finished, because of course she had seen it earlier, because Miss Thorne noticed everything. She stepped inside, closed the classroom door, and the click sounded like the period at the end of an irreversible sentence. "Please move your hand slowly." Nika did. The glowing dot followed her motion, then held steady over a tiny triangle that hadn't been there a moment before. A second hum joined the first, higher, the pitch of a kettle about to sing. Miss Thorne inhaled. Nika heard the teacher's breath catch, then resolve. "I should have locked this," Miss Thorne said, and then, ridiculously, apologized. "I'm sorry. What is it?" Nika asked. The words felt like stepping out onto ice that might hold. Miss Thorne's eyes did that almost saying something thing. "A model." "That is not a model," Nika said, and she and Miss Thorne both smiled a little, because once a lie is named it sometimes becomes gentler. "A map," Miss Thorne tried again. "Of sorts." The device's rings clicked. The light marked the triangle with a tiny pulse. Within the thin circle etched on the cabinet's glass, Nika now saw there were 4 ticks, evenly spaced, like cardinal points on a compass. Except one was dim, one was missing, and the one in front of her was brightening. It reacts when someone approaches, Miss Thorne said carefully. To certain signatures, like a fingerprint? Nika asked. Like a story, Miss Thorne said. Some people carry a pattern with them. The engine reads it. Engine? Nika repeated, and the word fit the rings and the wires and the hum, but not the scale of what she was feeling. What does it run? Not what, Miss Thorne said, and now there was the hint of a tremor in her voice, a tremor that could have been fear or hope. Where? The dot pulsed again. The top ring rotated a final notch with the small but absolute sound of a decision made. Nika stepped back. Miss Thorne reached out as if to steady the device, then stopped herself. Her hand hovered. Nika saw a thin scar on the side of Miss Thorne's index finger, a pale crescent like a moon at noon. You should leave now, Miss Thorne said, and she meant it. Leave what? Nika asked, because words had already slipped their leashes. The room? The cabinet? The idea that I saw any of this? I can do the last one. Possibly. Eventually. Miss Thorne laughed once, the kind of laugh that remembers how to stop itself. The room. For now. I can seal this in. The device chimed. The sound reminded Nika of the first moments of rain on a hot street. Not wetness yet, but relief announcing itself. The air inside the cabinet thickened. Heat rolled off the ringed disc in a visible shimmer. On the glass's faint circle, the bright tick brightened to a small, steady star. What does, for now, mean? Nika asked, because the room didn't feel like a place where endings could be guaranteed. It means nothing that has turned on wants to stay off, Miss Thorne said. She tried to lift the device out of its harness, but the leather straps tightened as if waking, and her hand recoiled with a sharp intake of breath. Are you okay? Nika asked. It likes you, Miss Thorne said, and there was a rawness in her tone that Nika hadn't heard before, a teacher who, for a second, was only a person. Which is both the best and worst thing that could have happened. Before Nika could reply, the bright tick flared and a seam opened across the cabinet's back, a hairline at first, then widening to the width of a hand. There was nothing behind it that a building inspector would recognize. No wall, no brick, no dust. Instead, there was a darkness with texture, as if someone had woven night into cloth and drawn it taut. The seam revealed more than depth, it revealed a difference. Nika felt the pressure of it the way one feels the pressure behind one's eyes during a storm. Close it, Nika whispered, because she was brave but not foolish, because courage is a good companion but a terrible captain. I can't, Miss Thorne said, and her voice was a note lower. Not while it is reading you. It opens to resonance. Resonance with me? Nika's chest felt tight, but not in the way of panic. More like when you were about to say something true for the first time. With your pattern, Miss Thorne said. With the thing you are, under all the other names. But I'm just, Nika began, and realized she was about to say ordinary. The engine hummed, offended. The seam widened. Air rushed not out but in, as if the cabinet were inhaling them. The classroom's posters flapped like startled birds. Miss Thorne caught Nika's wrist. You must listen very carefully. If you go through, I'm not going through, Nika said, but the engine and the opening were both arguments against her. If you go through, Miss Thorne continued inexorably, there are rules. Do not give your true middle name to anyone who asks. Do not eat the salt they hand you first. And if someone offers to carry your shadow, refuse politely and run. These sound like fairy tale rules, Nika said, trying to keep her voice steady. All good science was fairy tale once, Miss Thorne said. Nika, what is it called? Nika asked, because names matter, because even at the edge of falling, a word can be a rope. Miss Thorne looked at the device as one looks at a photograph of someone who left. I called it the Limen Engine. My teacher called it the hinge. The people on the other side call it nothing at all, because to name a door is to claim ownership, and it has never behaved well with owners. Have you been through? Nika asked. Miss Thorne's mouth tightened. Yes. In that yes lived the scar, the caution, the way Miss Thorne had sometimes seemed to measure the class not by grades but by gravity. Nika opened her mouth to ask what was on the other side, but the Limen Engine made the decision for her. The scene brightened at its edges, the way paper glows when held against a window. The pull deepened. The cabinet's shelves rattled softly in their channels. Hold on to me, Miss Thorne said. I am, Nika said, and realized she was not. Some part of her had already leaned forward, the way one leans into a story to hear it better. The shadowed seam yawned. The floor seemed to tilt, not down but sideways, toward an elsewhere whose physics had its own affection for her. Miss Thorne let go of Nika's wrist and, with a motion both desperate and precise, reached past her to the Limen Engine's outer ring. She rotated it a fraction. The humming deepened, split, harmonized with itself. The seam stabilized, but grew. The room smelled suddenly of cardamom and rain on hot stone and something like the inside of a violin case. Nika, Miss Thorne said, if you cross, I will come after you. But this may take time measured differently than the clocks you know. So if the suction surged, the strap that had seemed like leather coiled around Nika's forearm, not to bind but to anchor, and her body remembered falling from 2 meters once and the slow catastrophe of it. She grabbed the cabinet's edge with her other hand. The wood was smooth, traitorous. On the far side of the seam, something flickered, a movement that looked like a flock rearranging itself into a word. Nika, Miss Thorne shouted, and then the word was gone behind the sound of air collapsing into a shape large enough for a person to vanish through. Nika fell forward and did not hit the back of the cabinet. She fell through the seam as one might step between two thoughts. There was the sensation of cold fabric brushed across her face, of 1,000 tiny bells sounding at once in a neighboring room, of a second heartbeat discovering it had been thumping all along. Then there was ground, springy, not like a floor, and light, not like fluorescent tubes. She landed on her hands and knees in a courtyard that could not exist and yet had been waiting for her. Above her, the sky was a deep, lucid blue that felt nearer than it had any right to be. The walls around the courtyard were not brick, not stone, but stacked books, enormous and weather-sealed, their spines bearing titles and scripts that shifted if she stared too hard. Vines threaded the gaps, flowering in pale, undecidable colors. Nika stood slowly. The ground beneath her palms had left an imprint on her skin. Not dirt, not dust, but a fine powder that smelled faintly of cedar. In the corner of the courtyard stood an archway fashioned from mismatched door frames, every one painted a slightly different shade of red. They opened onto a street that curved in a way streets do not curve anywhere Nika had ever lived, as if the city were a ribbon arranged by a careful hand. She turned, and felt a tug at her wrist. The Limen Engine strap had come with her. The device itself rested against her skin like a heavy bracelet, its rings dull now, as if asleep. "Well," said a voice. It came from behind the archway of doors, from the street that curved like an idea. The speaker stepped into the courtyard. They were tall and wore a coat that made no particular sense, stitched from squares of maps and lined with what looked like lace cut from blueprints. Their hair had the worn gloss of river stones. Their eyes went first to the engine, then to Nika's face, and then, just for a heartbeat, to something at the height of her shoulder where nothing was. "You're early," they said. "And not the one I expected." "I didn't know I was expected," Nika said, and was proud of how steady her voice sounded. Her heart was doing that insistently hopeful thump that feels like fear if you don't listen properly. "No one ever does," the stranger said cheerfully. "Welcome to Palimpsest." "Palimpsest," Nika repeated. The word felt like a stone that had been in a river a long time, rounded, smooth, old shape still inside it. "Is this another world?" "That depends on how you count," the stranger said. "I'm Aris. I carry the keys that aren't for doors." "I'm Nika," she said automatically, then remembered Ms. Thorne's warning about names and middle names and strangers. She said nothing more. The device at her wrist twitched faintly, a small clock deciding whether to tick. Aris lifted their palms. "I see you have a hinge." "I was told never to call it that," Nika said, and Aris smiled in a way that included Ms. Thorne without having to know her. "Ah," Aris said. "A teacher. They are the worst best people. Or the best worst. Both work. Yours warned you, yes? About salt? Shadows?" Nika nodded. "Good," Aris said. "And rules are like umbrellas. You never need them when you have them, until you do." From somewhere beyond the archway came a sound like pages turning in a long, slow wave. Aris's head tilted. "We should move. There are keepers making their rounds, and while you seem charming, they get itchy when anything smells of the hinge." "Keepers of what?" Nika asked, allowing herself to be shepherded toward the mismatched doors. "Of patterns," Aris said. "Of order. Of everything that people like you and I are too happy to smudge." They stepped through the archway into the street. It was lined with lamps whose glass bellies held not flames but tiny storms. Houses had stairs that led upward into nothing, where, if you were brave, you could step and be somewhere else in 2 strides. People walked past dressed as if they'd consulted 3 centuries and chosen the most dignified parts of each. 2 figures floated by at knee-height, their long coats trailing behind them as if gravity had politely excused them from its roll call. Nika tried not to gape, failed, and decided she had earned a little gaping. As they walked, Aris pointed out places with the mixture of pride and apology one reserves for introducing a friend to a family. "The cataloger's bridge," they said, indicating a span whose stones were stamped with the outlines of leaves. "The flood clock, don't stand under it at the hour. The weaver's market, you can buy a spool of silence there, if that's your taste. Ah, and there is a salt cellar. Do not accept his first pinch, no matter how he praises your eyes." "Is that an actual rule or a proverb pretending to be one?" Nika asked, and Aris grinned. "Does it matter? In Palimpsest, proverbs learned to do real work." They turned into a narrower lane. At its end, a courtyard opened, smaller than the first, cozier, with a tree that had learned to grow into a spiral. Aris led Nika to a low door beneath a sign that read, in helpful letters that only became clear when you stopped trying to read them, "The guest room of lost things." Inside, it was warm in the way of rooms where the rugs know the names of the chairs. A kettle steamed on a black iron stove. Shelves held labeled boxes. A jar of dust from the bottom of a lake. A paper crane that once was a love letter. The scent of a thunderstorm that never happened. None of the boxes were sealed. Aris poured a drink that might have been tea if tea had decided to be slightly more honest. They offered Nika a cup without ceremony. When Nika reached for it, Aris made no move to add salt. She took a careful sip. It tasted like the first day back at school and the last day of winter layered into each other. She did not ask how. Why me? She asked, finally, because the question had been marching alongside them ever since she fell through the seam. Why did it choose me? Engines like that keep odd calendars, Aris said. They measure by decisions you haven't made yet. That is not helpful, Nika said, and Aris nodded. Most true things aren't, they agreed amiably. Listen. The hinge reads resonance, yes? But it also reads need. Something here needs you, or you need something here. Or both are true, which is the best kind of not. Nika looked down at the device on her wrist. Its rings were still, but the innermost had a hairline crack she hadn't seen before, a delicate fracture like frost at a window's edge. She traced it with a finger without touching. It hurt to look at, the way sympathy pains do. Is it broken? She asked. Everything is a little broken, Aris said. But some things are broken in useful directions. Outside, the wave-turning pages sound rolled nearer. Aris's eyes flicked to the door. The keepers, they said, low. They will be sniffing for fresh crossers. What do they want? Nika asked. To make sure everything that came through goes back, Aris said. Or to keep it, if it's interesting enough. They can be convinced to do either, which is why it's useful they follow rules more strictly than you or I. Footsteps, not exactly footsteps, but the memory of them, passed in the lane outside. A shadow walked under the crack of the door and stood there, as if listening. Nika did not breathe, which is a human superstition. It doesn't fool anything but yourself. The shadow moved on. Aris exhaled. We should get you to the reading room, they said. There's someone there who owes me a favor and who can tell you what kind of knot you are. The reading room? Nika asked, finishing the last swallow of not quite tea. You'll like it, Aris said. It's books read back. They slipped out through a back door and into a lane of laundry lines that crisscrossed above like friendly constellations. The sky had drifted toward evening without performing a sunset. Lamps were beginning to wake, storms tiny and contained inside them. They made for a stairwell that climbed along the exterior of a building whose windows were mirrors until you looked directly at them, at which point they became pictures of places you had once wanted to go and hadn't. Nika tried to ignore a riverbank from 3 summers ago. They were halfway up when Aris stopped so suddenly that Nika almost walked into them. Across the lane, on the neighboring stairs, a woman stood. She was not dressed like anyone else here, no map coat, no blueprint lace. She wore what Ms. Thorne wore on days she pretended to be ordinary. A dark jacket, a pale shirt, a watch that could have been a talisman. Her hair was the same as Ms. Thorne's when she pulled it back with a pencil and it fell out anyway. Even her hands were the same, right down to the pale crescent scar on the index finger. Ms. Thorne? Nika whispered, though the woman was 30 years and 3 decisions away from the version she knew. The woman smiled as one does at a name that is not hers and yet belongs. Not exactly, she said. Her voice was Ms. Thorne's pitched to a different key. But I've been waiting to see whether you'd arrive carrying that. Her gaze dropped to the Limen Engine on Nika's wrist. She did not reach for it. She looked at Aris as if the map code had footnotes she intended to read later, then back to Nika. I suppose she told you not to trust anyone who offers to carry your shadow, the woman said mildly. Good advice. In that spirit, I will only ask to borrow your time. Who are you? Nika asked, and it came out smaller than she liked. The woman's eyes flickered with regret or light or both. The part of your teacher that came here and never truly left, she said. The promise she made, the one she could not keep. My name here is Verity. What do you want? Aris asked, flat. To take Nika to the reading room, Verity said. Same as you, but perhaps to a different shelf. Aris's jaw tightened. We have arrangements. You have habits, Verity said. I have a debt. She turned her face toward Nika. You fell through because the hinge read your pattern, Verity said. That pattern is entangled with mine. I could say more, and I will, but the keepers have finally remembered where they put their hounds. If we argue about routes, we will be arguing from inside their nets. As if on cue, from the end of the lane came a sound like a choir breathing in. The storm lamps brightened. Aris swore in a dialect that tasted like copper when Nika heard it. Choose, Aris said to Nika, sharply kind. My path or hers. No shame either way, but choose now. Nika looked from Aris's easy danger to Verity's careful sorrow. She thought of Miss Thorne in the doorway, just before the room learned a new kind of depth. She thought of the rules that were umbrellas. She thought of how the Limen engine had warmed to her, how it had cracked, how the crack looked like a line that might become a letter. The hound's breath gathered itself at the lane's mouth. Nika chose. Nika's chest felt too small for her decision. The air around her quivered with the sound of the hounds breathing, though she had not yet seen them. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, stretching into the stairwell. I'll go with you, Nika said. Her voice cracked at first, then steadied. She was looking at Aris. Aris exhaled a sharp laugh that might have been relief. Good choice. Or terrible. Hard to know yet. Verity didn't flinch. Her expression softened into something like sorrow, as if she had been expecting the answer all along. She dipped her head, a nod that carried centuries. Then may the shelf you find still hold you, Nika. Wait, Nika blurted. If you're part of Miss Thorne. But Verity raised one hand, a gesture at once forbidding and gentle. Later, when it will not cost you everything. Her gaze lingered for a heartbeat longer, then she stepped sideways into a shadow that accepted her like water taking a stone. She was gone. The sound at the lane's mouth became motion. Shapes padded forward, 3 at first, then 5, then more. The hounds were not like any animals Nika knew. They were tall as her shoulders, each one made from scraps of parchment stitched with threads of light. Their eyes were circles of unblinking ink. Where paws should have struck the ground, letters scattered like sparks, burning out before they landed. Run, Aris whispered. Not shouted, whispered, because in Palimpsest a whisper sometimes traveled faster than a scream. They tore up the stairwell, 2, 3 steps at a time. The hounds leapt onto the walls as if the surfaces had forgotten about gravity. Nika looked back once and nearly tripped. A hound's mouth opened wide, and inside was not a tongue or teeth but a spinning reel of paper, words scrawling and vanishing in an endless loop. They'll catch us, Nika cried. Not if the reading room remembers me fondly, Aris panted. The stairwell ended in a door of ironwood banded with brass. Aris slammed their palm against it. Cymbals flared, then hesitated. Please, Aris hissed at the door. We are late but not lost. The hounds bounded closer. Nika could smell parchment singeing in their breath. One leapt. She flung out her arm without thinking, her left, the one still bound to the Limen engine. The device woke. Rings spun, slow but deliberate, and a low hum swelled through her bones. The leaping hound struck a shimmer in the air and shattered into a cloud of torn letters that spiraled down into nothingness. The other hounds recoiled, snarling, their ink eyes wide. The Limen engine pulsed once more, then dimmed as if exhausted. Good trick, Aris said tightly. Don't use it too often. You might wake more than you can lull back to sleep. The door chose that moment to groan open. Warm light spilled out, smelling of ink, cedar, and candle wax. Aris shoved Nika inside, then pulled the door shut just as the hounds struck it from the other side. Silence fell. Nika's knees gave out, and she collapsed against a table piled high with manuscripts. Her heart galloped, trying to catch up with what her eyes insisted had happened. "Where are we?" she managed. "The reading room," Aris said, straightening their map coat. "And if the room hasn't changed its mind, we are safe here. The keepers don't cross its threshold. They fear being catalogued." The chamber stretched in every direction, impossibly vast, with galleries and balconies woven like lacework. Bookshelves climbed to heights Nika's neck refused to crane fully toward. Ladders moved on their own, sliding along rails to where they were needed. Tables stood in clusters, some supporting lanterns filled with slow-turning constellations, others crowded with parchment, scrolls, and codices that murmured faintly to each other. "This is," Nika swallowed. "A library." "Library is too small a word," Aris corrected. "The reading room doesn't only keep books. It keeps moments, decisions, drafts of lives that might have been." As if to prove the point, Nika brushed her hand against a volume on the table beside her. The cover was warm, like skin. When she opened it, she gasped. The page showed herself, only older, standing in front of a classroom. Children sat at desks, their faces blurred as though not yet decided. On the next page, she was in a garden she didn't recognize, planting something luminous. She snapped the book shut. "That's your resonance," Aris said gently. "The reading room loves resonance." Nika felt dizzy. The shelves hummed faintly, as if agreeing. From between the stacks, a figure appeared. She was tall, cloaked in pale parchment robes that rustled with their own whispers. Her face was masked by an oval of translucent vellum on which words appeared and faded like thoughts not yet written. "Aris," the figure said. Her voice was many voices braided into one. "You return with a guest." "Guest," Aris said, bowing. "A crosser. The engine brought her." The figure's gaze, or the weight of her attention, settled on Nika. "A child of pattern and fracture." Nika shivered. "Who are you?" "I am the archivist," the figure said. "I keep what refuses to be lost." "She needs guidance," Aris explained. "The keepers are already sniffing her trail." "And the engine?" They nodded at the device on Nika's wrist. It cracked. The archivist drifted closer. She bent her head, studying the engine with a scholar's hunger. "Yes," she murmured. "Cracked, yet functional. A dangerous state. The fracture means choice. It may open places even the keepers do not chart." "What kind of places?" Nika asked warily. "Those built from memory, from unkept promises, from the marrow of regret," the archivist said. "Places where even names cannot hold you steady." "That sounds bad," Nika muttered. "Or necessary," the archivist replied. The shelves around them sighed. A ladder glided to the archivist's side, bearing a thin codex bound in brass wire. She opened it, and the pages fluttered like wings until they stilled on a single entry. Nika saw her own name inked there, not just Nika, but her full name, including the middle 1 megasecond. Thorn had warned never to give. Nika's stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" she whispered. The archivist closed the book softly. "Names leave echoes. This room catches them." Aris put a hand on Nika's shoulder. "Remember the rule. Do not let anyone use your middle name aloud. The room is safe enough, but even safety has ears." Nika nodded quickly, though fear still prickled down her spine. The archivist stepped back, her robe whispering against itself. If she is to survive, she must learn her resonance. She must learn to wield the engine without waking the hinge entirely. Teacher, Aris said. I cannot, the archivist answered. But I can send her to one who will. The Weaver. At the mention of the name, Aris's face darkened. The Weaver plays too many games. The Weaver understands threads, the archivist said simply. And what is resonance if not a thread tugging through the fabric of worlds? Nika spoke up, her voice small but firm. What happens if I don't learn? Then the keepers will find you, the archivist said. And they will unwrite you. Unwrite. The word struck colder than any threat of death. Nika clenched her hands. Then I'll learn. The archivist inclined her head. So it begins. She gestured, and one of the shelves shifted aside, revealing a narrow passage lit by candles that burned with blue fire. The air smelled of salt and roses. Through there, the archivist said. The Weaver's workshop lies at the edge of the city. Aris muttered under their breath but took Nika's arm. Come on. Best not to make the room impatient. They walked the candlelit passage, the murmur of the reading room fading behind them. The corridor sloped downward, and the walls grew rougher, more like stone than shelves. After a long descent, the passage opened into a plaza Nika hadn't seen before. The city looked different here, rougher, less polished, as though stitched together hastily. Looms of impossible size stood along the street, their threads glowing faintly as they wove themselves. Figures worked them, hooded, faceless, their hands moving in patterns Nika's eyes struggled to follow. This is unsettling, she whispered. It should be, Aris said grimly. The Weavers make patterns, and patterns make lives. They approached a vast loom at the plaza's center. Upon its frame hung a tapestry incomplete, threads dangling loose. As Nika drew nearer, she realized the woven image was of herself, standing in the courtyard of books where she had first arrived. But the threads were tangled around her wrist, just where the Limen Engine now rested. A figure stepped from behind the loom. Unlike the faceless weavers, this one had a face, narrow, sharp, with eyes like spindles that seemed to pierce through her. He wore robes stitched from unraveling fabric, always fraying but never falling apart. Ah, he said, smiling. The child with the broken hinge. Welcome, I am the weaver. Nika swallowed hard. You're supposed to teach me. I don't teach, the weaver said. I untangle. But perhaps that is the same thing. He touched the tapestry, brushing the thread of her wrist. The Limen Engine on her arm hummed in response, rings trembling faintly. Yes, the weaver murmured. You are already knotted to this world. The question is, will you cut the thread, or weave it deeper? Nika didn't know the answer. She only knew one thing for certain. Whatever choice she made, it would not be simple. The weaver smiled as though he had heard the thought. Good, he said softly. Let us begin. The weaver's workshop was vast and silent, except for the sound of threads being pulled across looms by invisible hands. The glowing fibers crisscrossed overhead like constellations, flickering faintly as if each strand remembered something. Nika felt small beneath them, but also connected. The weaver leaned close to the tapestry that bore her likeness. His eyes glittered, sharp and unblinking. Every crossing leaves a trace, he said. The engine is not merely a device. It is a needle, and you, girl, are the thread it carries. You have pierced the fabric between worlds. Now you must decide whether to stitch, to knot, or to tear. Nika swallowed. I don't understand. Then listen, the weaver said, brushing his long fingers against the threads. The tapestry shimmered. New images appeared. Nika in her classroom, laughing with friends. Nika reading under a tree. Nika standing in Ms. Thorne's laboratory. Then, the image fractured, splitting into dozens of paths. In one, Nika walked away from the cabinet and never touched the engine. In another, she touched it but fled before it opened. In another, she disappeared through the seam, just as she had. And in yet another, she vanished, leaving only a shadow behind. These are possibilities, the Weaver said softly. They exist, but only one of them lives in your blood. Do you know why the engine chose you? No, Nika admitted. I thought it was an accident. Nothing is an accident, the Weaver replied, his voice like silk over steel. The engine hums to resonance. It read the fracture inside you, the split between who you are and who you might have been. That fracture called to it, as it once called to your teacher. Nika stiffened. Miss Thorne? She came here before. I saw someone who looked like her. The Weaver smiled thinly. Yes, Verity. That is the part of your teacher that stayed behind when she crossed. The engine always takes a price. She was torn in two, one part returned, one part remained. That is why she feared you touching it. She knew what it would take. The words rang in Nika's chest. A part of Miss Thorne had never gone home. And if Nika wasn't careful, would she be split too? Aris leaned against a loom nearby, arms folded. Don't frighten her more than necessary. The Weaver ignored them. He gestured to the threads. To survive here, you must learn to weave your resonance. Control the engine, or it will control you. Step closer. Nika hesitated but obeyed. The tapestry trembled as she approached, threads quivering like harp strings. The engine on her wrist warned. Touch it, the Weaver commanded. She reached out, fingers brushing the glowing fibers. Immediately, she felt something surge inside her, not heat, not light, but memory. Images rushed through her. The smell of her grandmother's kitchen, the sting of losing her best friend, the warmth of Miss Thorne's patient smile when she solved a difficult problem. The tapestry pulsed with those moments, weaving them into its pattern. Nika gasped and pulled back. It's me. It's weaving me. Of course, the Weaver said, eyes glittering. Threads remember. You are a thread. Do you wish to see what you could become? Before she could answer, he yanked another strand. The tapestry shifted violently. Now she saw herself standing before a vast city of towers shaped like quills and scrolls. The people below her bowed, whispering her name as though she were some kind of ruler. Then the image blurred, twisting into another. Nika holding the engine aloft, unleashing a storm that ripped the city apart. She staggered back, horrified. I don't want either of those. I just want to go home. The Weaver's smile was faint and unreadable. Home is a fragile word. It unravels the more you tug at it. Aris stepped between them. Enough. You've shown her the dangers. Now show her how to hold a thread without strangling it. The Weaver gave a theatrical sigh. Very well. He plucked a thin, silver filament from the loom and handed it to Nika. Thread this through the engine. Let it spin, but not consume. Her hands shook as she obeyed. The ring of the engine rotated, and the silver thread passed through its core, glowing brighter with every turn. The hum grew stronger, vibrating in her bones. For a moment she felt the world tilt, as if it were waiting for her command. Good, the Weaver said. Now, bind it. How? By naming. Nika froze. Miss Thorne's warning echoed in her ears. Do not give your true middle name to anyone who asks. What name? She whispered. Any name, the Weaver said. But choose carefully. A name shapes the thread. A careless word can warp it forever. Her mouth went dry. Slowly, she whispered, Hope. The silver thread glowed, locking into place. The hum softened. The Weaver studied her with an unreadable expression. Interesting. You bind with hope. That can save you, or destroy you. Before Nika could answer, a thunderous boom shook the plaza. The looms rattled, threads snapping free like lightning. Aris cursed under their breath. The keepers, they said. They've tracked us here. Nika's blood ran cold. The weaver frowned. They're too bold. To breach my workshop? His gaze flicked to Nika. They want the fracture. They want you. The door at the far end of the hall burst open. The hounds spilled in, their parchment bodies flickering with burning script. Behind them came the keepers themselves, tall, faceless figures draped in robes of midnight, each carrying long quills that dripped ink like venom. Run, Aris hissed, pulling Nika toward a side passage. The weaver caught her wrist. Take the thread. He shoved the silver filament, still glowing, into her hand. It is yours now. Use it or be unmade. Nika clutched the thread and sprinted after Aris. The looms around them trembled as the keepers advanced, their quills scratching the air. Where the ink fell, reality seemed to peel away, leaving nothing but blank parchment. They darted down the passage, the hounds howling behind them. The walls here were stitched cloth, unraveling as the keeper's ink spread. Nika's heart pounded. Where are we going? She cried. To the loom bridge, Aris shouted. It spans the unwritten. If we're lucky, it will still hold. They burst into open air. Before them stretched a bridge of threads glowing in every color, stretching across a chasm of swirling white void. The void moved like clouds, but faster, collapsing and forming again. Nika's stomach twisted. That's the unwritten? She whispered. Yes, Aris said grimly. Every story not yet told. Step wrong and you vanish into possibility. The hounds were closing. Nika clutched the silver thread. The engine hummed. Without knowing how, she tied the filament around her wrist. The glow spread, forming a faint shield around her. Go, Aris urged. They ran across the trembling bridge. Threads swayed beneath their feet, some snapping away into the void. Nika tried not to look down. The hounds leapt onto the bridge, their weight sending tremors through the weave. One lunged at Nika. She flung out her arm, the silver thread blazing. The hound hit the shield and burst into torn letters, scattering into the void. The others hesitated, snarling. Halfway across, a keeper raised its quill and drew a line in the air. The bridge beneath them began to unravel. It's collapsing. Nika screamed. Aris grabbed her hand. Jump! They leapt just as the bridge unraveled behind them. Nika hit the far side hard, the breath knocked out of her. Aris hauled her to her feet. The keepers hissed, their faceless forms rippling with anger. But they did not cross. The unraveling bridge left a gap too wide even for them. For now, they were safe. Nika clutched the silver thread, her chest heaving. I can't do this. I'm not, whatever you think I am. Aris looked at her with unusual seriousness. You're already doing it. That's the problem. She shook her head. I just want to go home. Aris hesitated. Then, softly, they said, home may not want you back. The engine doesn't choose lightly. It opened to you for a reason. And unless you learn why, it won't close. Nika stared at the glowing thread wound around her wrist. Somewhere deep in the city, she thought she heard Verity's voice again, faint as a memory. The promise she could not keep. And she knew this was only the beginning. The city stretched out before them like a puzzle only half assembled. Towers leaned at angles that should not stand, alleys curved back into themselves, and bridges led to doors that shimmered with half-written sentences. Nika followed Aris, her silver thread glowing faintly at her wrist, the Limen Engine heavy against her skin. Behind them, the echo of the keepers still lingered like a pressure in the air. Nika shivered, certain they had not given up the hunt. "Where are we going now?" she asked breathlessly. "To the Atrium of Echoes," Aris said, eyes fixed ahead. "It's the one place even the keepers hesitate to enter. And if Verity wants you." Nika slowed. "Verity? She's part of Miss Thorne, isn't she?" Aris sighed. "Yes. The part that never left. You saw her once already." "Did she speak to you?" "She said she was waiting. And that my teacher made a promise she couldn't keep." Aris muttered something under their breath, then added, "Then she'll find us soon." Verity has a way of arriving where threads are thinnest. They reached the atrium just as twilight bled across the strange sky. The space was enormous, roofless, its walls covered in mirrors that rippled like pools of water. The air hummed with whispers, echoes of voices Nika recognized as her own, speaking words she had never said. She stepped closer to a mirror. It showed her reflection, but older, 15 years older. She was standing in a classroom again, chalk in hand, a circle of eager students before her. Her throat tightened. "That's not real," she said. "Not yet," Aris corrected. "These are echoes of choices that might still come. Don't linger too long, or they'll begin to think you belong to them." Nika tore her gaze away. A ripple moved across the mirrors. Then Verity stepped out, her face calm, her presence as steady as a compass. "I knew you would come here," Verity said. Her eyes lingered on Nika. "You carry the fracture, just as I once did. Tell me the truth," Nika demanded, though her voice shook. "What happened to my teacher?" Verity's gaze softened. "She crossed the hinge, as you did. But she faltered. The engine demanded a price. It took half her essence. I am that half. She returned to your world incomplete. That scar on her hand? A reminder. She fears the day you will ask her what she lost." Nika's throat ached. "She said she'd come after me." "She will try," Verity said. "But time runs differently here. To her, it may be minutes. To us, years." Nika pressed her hands into her face. "So I'm stuck, aren't I?" Verity stepped closer. "Not stuck. Chosen. You have the fracture, and the engine listens to you. You can weave it closed, return home, forget all this. Or," her voice lowered, "you can bind yourself here. Weave yourself into Palimpsest. Become what your teacher could not." Aris tensed. "You're pushing her. She deserves to know," Verity replied. Then, to Nika, "If you go back, the engine will seal. But you will always carry its crack. The keepers will smell it. They may come for you again. If you stay, you can learn to master it. To defend not only yourself, but others. You could keep this city from unraveling." Nika's mind swirled. Home, her parents, her friends, her ordinary, safe life. But the memory of the Hounds, of the Keeper's ink-erasing walls, of Miss Thorne's scarred hand, it all pulsed in her chest like a second heartbeat. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. Verity looked at her gently. "Then listen. The choice will be made not by fear, but by need. Yours, and the engine's." The hum deepened. The Limen engine at her wrist stirred, its cracked ring glowing faintly. The mirrors around them shook. From the far end of the atrium, the keepers entered. Their parchment hounds slithered at their feet, and their quills dripped rivers of ink that bled across the marble. "No," Aris hissed. "Not here. Not now." The archivist appeared at the atrium's entrance, her vellum mask glowing faintly. "They come for the fracture," she said. "They would unwrite her. Then we fight," Aris said, drawing from their coat a blade made entirely of paper maps folded into impossible geometry. Verity raised her hand, threads of light swirling around her fingers. "And Nika?" Nika trembled, clutching the silver thread the weaver had given her. The keepers advanced, faceless, inevitable. The engine hummed louder. She felt it pulling at her, demanding an answer. Stitch, knot, or tear. The words of the weaver rang in her mind. Nika's heart hammered. She could flee, let Aris and Verity hold them off. She could cling to the silver thread, try to shield herself. Or, she raised her arm. The engine blazed. The silver thread unwound, splitting into dozens, then hundreds of glowing strands. They lashed out like whips, striking the hounds, binding their parchment bodies until they burst into letters. The keepers staggered, their ink quills sputtering as the threads tangled around them. Good. The weaver's voice echoed in her memory. You bind with hope, hope multiplies. But the engine was pulling harder now, its crack widening. She felt herself slipping, her memories of home scattering like pages in a storm. No, she gasped, clutching the silver thread. Not like this. Verity appeared beside her, gripping her hand. You must decide now, Nika. Close it, or weave it open forever. Nika's chest ached. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind. Her teacher's tired smile, her friend's laughter. But also, the beauty of Palimpsest, the kindness in Aris's crooked grin, the archivist's wisdom, the weaver's strange lessons. Two worlds, two threads. She looked at Verity. If I go home, what happens to you? Verity's eyes shimmered. I remain. This is where I belong. And Miss Thorne? She will always feel my absence, Verity whispered. But she will endure. Nika's breath caught. Slowly, she raised her arm, the engine humming like a heart about to burst. I can't abandon either, she said. Not entirely. And then she did something no one expected. She split the thread. Half wove back through the engine, sealing the crack. The hum softened, folding inward, anchoring her to the memory of home. The other half unraveled into the air, weaving itself into Palimpsest, tying her to this world as well. The engine glowed once, then quieted, as though satisfied. The keepers shrieked, their faceless forms unraveling. Bound by both choices, they had no place to cling. The hounds scattered into dust. The mirrors steadied, showing only silence. The atrium fell still. Nika stood trembling, the engine silent on her wrist. Aris grinned shakily. Well, that's new. Verity gazed at her with awe. You did what your teacher could not. You bound yourself to both. You are a bridge now. The archivist bowed her vellum face. Palimpsest will remember you, and so will your world. Nika's knees buckled. She laughed once, shakily. So I'm not stuck? No, Verity said softly. But neither are you free. You will walk two lives. One there, one here, and each will echo into the other. Nika thought of her classroom, her family, her ordinary life, and of the courtyards of books, the bridges of thread, the storm-lit lamps. She thought of Miss Thorne, incomplete yet waiting. She thought of herself, fractured and whole at once. And she smiled. Then I'll walk both, she said. The mirrors rippled, opening a seam of light, the path home. Beyond it, she could see her classroom, empty except for the faint smell of chalk and cardamom. She stepped forward. Aris raised 2 fingers in a salute. Verity's eyes glistened. Until next time. Nika crossed the seam. She landed on the classroom floor, gasping. The Limen Engine lay cold on her wrist. Miss Thorne rushed forward, eyes wide, breath shaking. Nika, are you hurt? Did it? She froze, staring at the engine. Then at Nika's face. You crossed. Nika met her gaze. For the first time, she saw the depth in her teacher's eyes, the fracture hidden there. Yes, Nika whispered. And I came back. Miss Thorne's hands trembled as she reached out. What did you see? Nika hesitated. She thought of Verity, of Aris, of the Weaver and the Archivist, of the choice she had made. She thought of how her middle name now pulsed with new meaning, too precious to give away. Enough, she said quietly. Enough to know it isn't over. The bell rang in the distance, as though nothing had happened. The classroom smelled faintly of cedar dust and thunder. Nika looked down at her wrist. The engine was quiet, but the silver thread still glowed faintly, a reminder of both worlds. And deep in her heart, she knew, she belonged to both. For she was no longer only Nika, student of physics. She was Nika, the bridge. And her story had only just begun.